Dear friends, welcome to this week's virtual drasha. This week we have the incredible privilege to be Parshas Shemos. And it's in this parsha, in this chumash, that we transition from the story of individuals to the story of a nation. Because remember again, the book of Bereshis is really the stories of individuals, avos, imos, patriarchs, matriarchs, then the tribes, the shvatim, families, but still individual units. Chumash Shemos introduces us to the collective, to Am Yisrael, to Bnei Yisrael. And unfortunately, that narrative, our narrative, begins laced with much pain and difficulty. Paro enslaves us. He legislates the enslavement of the Jewish people. He commands the midwives to throw the babies into the Nile, or commands his people to throw the babies into the Nile, commands the midwives to slaughter the Jewish boys. And again, a chapter of darkness, difficulty, and enslavement envelops us. And then the Torah records something very interesting. The Torah says, this is in Perek Vav, Pasach of Gimel, chapter 6, verse 23. And it was during these days, Vayamas Melech Mitzrayim, the king of Egypt, Pharaoh, died. Vayanchu b'nei Yisrael min ha'avoda. The Jewish people cried out. They cried out as a result, ultimately, again, of their work. Vayizaku. And they cried out. Now, Vayanchu literally means they groaned. They groaned as a result of their back-breaking labor. Vayizaku, they cried out. Vatal shavasam el elokim min ha'avoda. And their cries ascended to Hashem because of the back-breaking labor. And there's a simple question, which is, why is this pasuk here? Remember, by the time we get to this, just to give you context, the next section of the parasha is where we're introduced really to adult Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe is married to Tzipporah, living a quiet life in Midian, tending his father-in-law's flock, and it's there that he quote-unquote, stumbles upon the burning bush and is inducted into the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's almost as if the Torah is setting up the story. The Jewish people are crying out because of their servitude. Moshe Rabbeinu, inducted into the service of God, reluctantly accepts the position, and then again, the process of redemption occurs. But the question is still a question, which is, why are you recording the fact that they cried out over here? Like, why now? Why now? They've been enslaved for years, and the servitude has been absolutely overwhelmingly barbaric. They weren't crying out before, they're dafka crying out here. And so some of the commentaries point out a very interesting idea. If you notice, the pasuk says that Paro died. Paro died. So what does that have to do with the fact that they're crying out to backbreaking labor? So some of the commentaries point out that it was common that when a king, a ruler would die, sometimes some of his edicts, his proclamation, his legislation would kind of go to the grave with him. They would stop enforcing it. The new king came on, Vayakam el Chadash, a new king would come along and introduce his own legislation. And in that moment that Paro died, there was like a glimmer of hope for the Jewish people, that perhaps again servitude is going to come to an end, everything is going to be different, and maybe we're going to be free, and even if not everything is going to be perfect, at least it's going to get better. And when it didn't, it caused them to lose all hope. In other words, I think what the commentators are teaching us is a profound idea. One of the most powerful things, one of the most powerful kochos that we possess is the power of optimism and hope, that things can change. The challenge is that when things are a certain way for a long enough amount of time, we lose that feeling of optimism and hope that things could be any different. You see, our ancestors who were enslaved in Egypt for years, they had hope. They had optimism. And in that moment when Paro died, they thought, oh, this is the window. Like this is where everything is going to change. And when it didn't, they lost everything. And that's why the double Lashon, Vayanchu, they groaned, Vayizaku, they cried out. So Vayanchu, ultimately, again, is almost like, what's a groan? Sometimes when a person lets out a groan, a krech, it's almost like a feeling of like yeosh. It's a feeling of just like despondency, giving up hope. Interestingly enough, Vayizaku, crying out could be tefillah, but Vayanchu, groaning, that's just like nebuch on me. There's no hope, there's no future. It's the groan, it's the sigh of yeosh. And in this moment, what's happening profoundly in this pasuk is, Torah is telling us, they had probably cried out and called out in prayer many times before to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What changed over here was a loss of hope, a loss of optimism. And when there is a loss of optimism and hope, that's where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, we need to bring about redemption now. Because when you lose optimism and hope, when you lose just a vision for your future, when you stop believing that things can be different, when you lose that, you're at risk for losing yourself. When a person suffers adversity, a person suffers tragedy or trauma, as long as you have hope for yourself for the future, as long as you believe that things can be different, that things will be different, will be better, I don't know how, what, when, where, but I believe it, then you could weather any storm that comes your way. But the moment you find yourself enveloped by yeosh, by despair, the moment that you have no vision for your future, the moment that you believe that this is it, what is now, this is what's going to be for the rest of my life, nothing's ever going to get better or be different, that's the moment where you run the risk of literally falling into that chasm of almost like metaphoric oblivion. There's nothing left. There's nothing left. And that's why the very next section, Klal Yisrael has this yeosh, they despair, va'anchu, they're groaning. There's no more hope. We thought Paro died. This was a new beginning. There's no more hope. Chash Baruch Hu says, okay, I got to step in. I got to step in. Because if I don't save them now, if I don't activate the process for redemption now, they will be lost for all time. An incredible idea that sometimes we're able to hang on to hope. But when things are a certain way for too long, we end up losing that hope. And this, I think, becomes one of the most almost like delicate dances in life. All of us have fixtures of our lives which have been that way a long time. And I'd like those things in my life to be different. And you can fill in the blank. For some of us, maybe I have a marriage, but my marriage is mediocre at best. Or it's okay. And I would love for it to be different. I would love for it to be better. But it's been this way for such a long time that I just don't see a way forward. Or again, my relationship with my kids, my relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, my career. I've been in a career and it's fine. It's fun, but I know that I could produce more. I know that I could do more. I know I could accomplish more, but I've been doing it like this, with this, and this for such a long time that it's almost as if I've given up hope that things could be any better. And I think all of us get into these situations in life, when it's episodic, and again, I encounter a difficult situation, it's much easier to hold on to hope and to optimism. When it's prolonged and sustained, like our ancestors in Egypt, it's almost like, it's not going to change. It's just not going to change. It just is what it is. So how do we deal? So here in Mitzrayim, Hashem sent Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, so here, Kodesh Baruch Hu saw that the cloud, the collective, was slipping into this chasm of like lack of hopelessness, of yeosh, of oblivion. He activates his sleeper cells, so to speak. He activates Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu, time to get to work. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know, but he was being put to work. But what do we do? What do we do for those situations in our lives where we've kind of, I know it needs to change, not because it's bad, but just because it can be better. But yet it's been this way for such a long time that I don't know that I have hope anymore that it can be better. So I'm going to share with you something amazing. We just actually had it in today's daf. The Gemara, without getting into the whole discussion, but the Gemara Meseches Zvachim, daf Kuf Tes Zayin Amud Aleph, page 116a. The Gemara says, the Gemara is talking about Yisro, the father-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu. Again, also tying into this week's parasha. So the Torah says, Vayishma Yisro. If we fast forward a little bit to Parashas Yisro, so it says, Yisro heard everything that happened to Klal Yisro, and he decided to join the ranks of Klal Yisro. So interesting enough, the Gemara says, Vayishma Yisro, Ma Shmuel Shama Uba. What did Yisro hear that made him leave Midyan and come and join the ranks of Klal Yisro? So the Gemara records a whole bunch of machlokas. So it was the splitting of the Red Sea, Kriyas Yamsuf, the war with Amalek, Matan Torah, Sinaitic Revelation. Okay. The Hiliga Piajetzna, Rav Klomas Kama Shapir Hashem Yikom Dama, the Yesh Kodesh, says something amazing. He says, here's what the Gemara is really bothered by. Right? What do we mean, Mashmua Shama? What did Yisro hear? The Piajet says, that's not the part to focus on. It's Ma Shmua Shama Uba. You see, Yisro realized that there was something unique about Klal Yisrael. So he could have, remember, Moshe Rabbeinu was his son-in-law. As a father-in-law, you have a little bit of leverage. So you could say to his son-in-law, hey, Moshe, Send me a Malamed. I'm not leaving Midian. I'm comfortable here. I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm happy. I have my partner. I have all these things. Send me a tutor. I don't know. Send me like a shaliach. Send someone to put tefillin on me. Send someone to teach me Torah. Send someone to inspire me. Give me some chassidus. Just send someone to me. But yet that's not what Yisro did. Yisro left what he had. He left the circumstances he had and he traveled out to Klal Yisrael. That, says the Piazetzna, is what the Gemara is intrigued by. It doesn't say Ma Shmua Shama Yisro. What did Yisro hear? It said Ma Shmua Shama Yisro. What did Yisro hear? Uba. What did he hear that made him get up? What did he hear that made him say, yes, this is a comfortable life. It's been this way for however long, but it can be better. What did Yisro hear that jarred him so much, that allowed him to leave what he had known and what he had created over the years to seek out something different? So there's a whole machlokas. What did he hear? Was it the splitting of the sea? Was it the war with Amalek? Was it the receiving of the Torah? The answer to that question is a little bit inconsequential. What's amazing is that the Gemara is marveling about the ability of a human being to leave a prolonged and protracted situation, life situation, in search of something better. Just because things have been a certain way for a long time doesn't mean that they have to be that way going forward. We just have to be able to be brave enough to say, okay, life is fine. This situation is fine. My marriage is fine. My kids are fine. My career is fine. And that's best case scenario. But I don't want to be fine. I don't want to be fine. I don't know how much time I have on this earth. I don't know, again, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. But one thing is clear, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't put anyone on this earth to be fine. He doesn't put us here to be okay. He doesn't put us here to just settle in, to just comfortable, prolonged situations that foster mediocrity at best. That's not why he puts us here. See, there's a contrast. Klal Yisrael, after being in servitude for so long, gave up hope that anything could ever be different. And so they just groaned. They just krechts. That's the right. They just krechts. They just let it out. That's it. There was yeosh. They gave up hope. Now, when the Klal gives up hope, that's an existential danger. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to come in, he has to get involved. And again, next section, he activates Moshe Rabbeinu. What's the contrast to Klal Yisrael? The contrast to Klal Yisrael is Yisro. Yisro. Vayishma Yisro. Yisro heard something. He's like, there's more out there. There's more to life. I can be more. I can do more. And the greatness of Yisro is that he heard it and he did something about it. And the Gemara is like, wow. Ma shmua shama uba. What does it take for a person to have lived the life a certain way for a prolonged amount of time and then say, you know what? I can do better. I can be better. What provokes a person? What pushes a person? What catapults a person to leave the comfortable life that they have created in the search of greater meanings? That's a whole machlokes, what the catalyst could be. But dear friends, these are the choices we have in life. We can unfortunately be like our ancestors and say things have been like a certain way for such a long time, and therefore that's the way they're going to be. Or, Vayishma Yisro, I could have this epiphanical moment, a moment of epiphany, where I close my eyes and say, you know what? It can be different. Imagine the marriage you want to have. Imagine the career you want to have. Imagine the ruchnius, the spiritual identity you want to possess. Imagine it. Create the vision of it in your mind's eyes, at least, and then say, okay, things don't have to be the same way. I can change it. Okay, maybe I will get the ideal. Maybe I won't get the ideal. And maybe my ideal is not ideal, because that's a lot of times we have conceptions of things in life. That's the right direction. But that's the avoda in life. The Torah is giving us a contrast between our ancestors and Yisro. You could either go ahead and say in life, things have been a certain way for so long, therefore that is the way they're going to be. And just understand that leads to one thing and one thing only. Yeyosh, a sense of despair, gloominess, sadness, and over time, just like desperation. Or you could be a Yisro. Mashmua Shama Uba. Life is filled with such incredible opportunity. And if you just close your eyes and open your neshama and envision the life you want for yourself, maybe you'll get that vision, maybe you won't, but one thing is clear, which is you need not settle for the mediocrity of the present. Mashmua Shama Uba. Yisro models for us that sometimes when you hear and when you see what life can be, that can give you the courage to get up and start to do something about it. For the klal, Moshe Rabbeinu, for the klal, HaKadosh Baruch Hu activates Moshe Rabbeinu. But for individuals, HaKadosh Baruch Hu expects us to get up and begin to move our lives forward. May we be Zochem Yirtz Hashem, Halavai, as a nation, to get our Moshe Rabbeinu again, who will lead us to redemption. And as individuals, may we be Zochem Yirtz Hashem to find the courage of a Yisro, hear and see the beautiful potential life that is waiting for us, find the courage to pick ourselves up and move ourselves towards it. Wishing everyone a good night of Shabbos and a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh.